Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I'm John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Good topic for you today. Let's do it. What's the biggest bullet you have ever dodged? Please remember to like, share, hype, listen, and ask for shoutouts, and subscribe. Driving to my girlfriend's parents' place in Montana for Thanksgiving. Crossing a mountain pass in my 1984 Toyota Tercel, it was a beautiful sunny winter day, but coming around a bend, I hit an ice patch and immediately started sliding off the road. It was next to a cliff with no guardrail, and it was a slow-motion freakout. The car came to a stop just before going over. My girlfriend didn't even have room to get out on her side. We slowly and carefully slid out my side and both got out safely. But then our previous freakout turned quickly into some real concern about what the hell we were going to do next and how we were going to get out of there in the middle of nowhere. And it was cold. Not 2 minutes later, a pickup truck with 2 guys in the cab and 3 in the bed came around the bend toward us. They pulled over in front of my car and they all hopped out like a pit crew. One guy with a tow strap hooked it under the front axle, hooked it on the back of the truck, and they pulled my car off the cliff and back onto the shoulder of the highway. I thanked them profusely and asked them what in the hell they were doing out in the middle of nowhere like this. One guy said that there wasn't much to do around here and helping people on the highway was kind of a fun activity. The entire event took a total of about 10 minutes. Around 2019, we were struggling financially, and as a result, our gas was shut off. After months of struggling, we were finally able to get the bill down and have the gas turned back on. When the worker came out, he had to do a mandatory test for carbon monoxide. Turns out our furnace was absolutely leaking carbon monoxide, and we had no idea. I can't help but think it's entirely possible that we could have died from CM poisoning if we had not had our gas shut off in the first place. We got a new furnace and loaded up on CM detectors. What was a huge misfortune of having our gas shut off due to not being able to afford the bill actually ended up saving our lives in the end. Was driving home with my then girlfriend down a normal road. We decided to go out for food and stopped at Applebee's. Food took forever. It was like 40 to 50 minutes. Between ordering and getting the food, we finished, paid, and left kind of miffed. Continued driving home and the street lights were out at some point in a detour. Turns out a tornado ripped through the road just ahead of us. Probably would have been on the road if our food hadn't taken so long. I was dating this girl for a while. I thought she was the one for me. Pretty, adventurous, and fun. Then I discovered my, at the time, best friend and her were sleeping together for a few months. Oof. I was devastated. Went into full spiral depression for about 4 months. When I came out of it, I reached out to some friends who I had not talked to since. They chose the backstabber over me. My entire friend group abandoned me. I had no one. Then I hit up an old friend from a younger age who we drifted apart because of that friend group. We started hanging out again, and he introduced me to some new people. Then a few years after that, he introduced me to my now wife. Though at the time I was crushed by what they did, that best friend did me a huge favor and showed me that girl's true side, and now I'm happier than I've ever been. I was a spectator at the Boston Marathon the year of the bombing, standing exactly at the site of the second bomb about 10 minutes before the bomb went off. My wife was running the marathon, and thankfully finished 10 minutes before the explosions. We had just met up in the family meeting area when the bombs detonated. It was surreal. Did not know until later that evening where the bombs were located, and it was only then that I realized how close I was to being a victim. Absolutely surreal. My dad and I used to ride the same train line every night back home from the city for work. We sat in the same car, same row, same seat. One night, both of us couldn't make it, so we were going to get home, however, different times, take a taxi, etc. That night a gunman was on our train, same time, in the same car, third, walking up and down the aisle shooting people. A father and son were sitting in our normal seats. The father was killed and the son paralyzed. I couldn't ride the train for a month. Couldn't get the thought out of my head that it should have been us. I still think about it every time I'm on a train. quit smoking cigarettes when I was in nursing school. I saw a COPD patient bent over in the tripod position in order to breathe better. And in that moment, something in my brain clicked. I told myself, this is you if you don't stop. And after some back and forth, I've quit 10 years strong. I left my family pack with passport tickets and $1,000 in cash in a toilet stall at the Milan airport when I was a teen, going to Italy on a rotary exchange. So stupid. And that airport had a major crime problem. I was panicked, about to accept the whole month was ruined, and then heard my name over the intercom. Some wonderful person had returned it to the gate without even snagging some cash. I made a major karma withdrawal that day. I met a very handsome young man at a community college I was attending. We had a couple of classes together and ended up exchanging numbers. We chatted a few times on the phone, and I remember him asking to take me out. I was flattered, and although he was very charming and seemed nice enough, I remember just giving him the "oh sorry, I'm busy" lines. He stopped pursuing me, and all communication ceased. About 6 months later, boom, he was all over the news for arring and murdering a young woman. That arrest led the authorities to tie him to another unsolved murder that was done in the exact same fashion. Authorities even said he apparently had a certain type that he preyed on, as they stated the two women he arred and killed were the exact same body type. I remember being stunned and telling my parents I still have his number in my phone. I could have easily been another one of his victims. I thank God for shielding me from him. He's currently on death row. I desperately needed a career change in my late 30s and was originally going to go into nursing. For one reason or another, I decided against that and ended up getting a degree in IT. A few years later, the pandemic hit, and instead of having to work in healthcare during that shit show, I got to start working from home and received a sizable raise. I worked with 2 nurses and had my eye on Linda, a pretty, vivacious, smart, flirtatious woman. Her friend Deanna was very pretty but quiet, though she could hold conversations. I had concert tickets and went up to ask Linda out for the first time. She was wearing a wedding ring. Nurses don't wear rings, and Linda had forgotten to take hers off that evening. Deanna was in an isolation room, all gowned and masked. I put on a mask, went to the door, and asked her out. We've been married 47 years this month. The bullet I dodged was that Linda was a flake. She was on her second marriage, broke up with him, and married twice more. She always wanted younger, then much younger men, pretty boys. She aged out and would accept a man near her age. Last we knew, she was living alone. When I was about 8 years old, we went on a family vacation to the mountains in western North Carolina. While we were there, we went tubing on a river. At one point, there were some rapids, and I fell off my tube and got caught in the undercurrent created by the big boulders in the river. I was stuck there for what felt like minutes, and was unable to get to the surface. My parents didn't see it happen, but some stranger did, and he yanked me out. I doubt I'd be here today if I wasn't for that man. I wish I knew who he was, so I could say thank you. Alright guys, so happy Thanksgiving again. A couple of things I just want to address from yesterday's comments. To Mittens, I hope you rest in peace. I'm sorry. Argento fan, that's a tough one. Hope you're doing okay. And Flimsy Indo, I think, asked what I'm looking forward to most for dish-wise on Thanksgiving. I don't know, I'm pretty basic. The turkey. I guess I like good mashed potatoes. My mom makes these really good stuffed mushrooms, like Italian style, like breadcrumbs and Parmesan, garlic. They're awesome. Anyway, so all that. Maybe some Prosecco. And what do I do for my full-time job? Somebody else asked that. I'm a site safety supervisor for a big construction company in the city. And I do like 5 other jobs too. But anyway, happy Thanksgiving. And again, I truly am thankful for each and every one of you. We wouldn't be here without you. So hope to see you for years to come. I hope you enjoy the day with your friends and family. God bless. Not taking out $150,000 of private loans for a bachelor's degree in nursing at a private school, waited an extra year to fatten up my resume and experience to apply to the cheaper, more competitive nursing programs, and got into an accelerated 15-month program that only cost $45,000 on the trajectory to walk and take the NCLEX next May. No regrets. Went to my girlfriend's dorm after a date. We're snogging on the front porch of the dorm, and I jokingly asked if I could drive her back over to my dorm across the campus because it was so late. It was about 3 in the morning at that time. I knew she'd say no, which was fine because it was mostly a joke. I picked up a can of metal cleaner the staff had left next to the door and said I'd use it for self-defense if anyone tried anything. Gave her a quick kiss, put the cleaner back down, and got about 100 feet away when I heard my name. Confused, I stopped, turned around, and she was running toward me with her keys. Told her I was joking and that I'd be fine. Turns out someone had just been murdered about 20 feet from my dorm window, throat slit. The police were still on scene when I pulled into the parking lot. They ended up finding the guy hiding in the bushes next to our humanities building, a building and bushes I would have walked by about 2 to 3 minutes later if my girlfriend hadn't come running back out to give me her keys. I was driving to my no-wife's mom for the first time on the highway at about 70 miles per hour. Suddenly a 10 to 20-pound arrowhead-shaped piece of broken asphalt was launched at my car in a huge arch from the wheels of the speeding semi ahead of me. I had enough time to calmly realize that's going right at me. I'm definitely going to die. I didn't know if I should hit the brakes, speed up, no idea. I think I just took my foot off the accelerator. It landed on the hood of my car, right in front of the windshield, leaving a huge gouge in the metal hood. The hood absorbed a lot of the impact, but momentum kept the chunk moving and it bounced onto the windshield and cracked it. It then rolled onto the roof, gouging that, then the back window and the trunk lid, scraping everything it touched. If I'd been going the most minuscule amount faster, or was literally 1 foot closer to that truck, I have no doubt that thing would have gone through the windshield and killed me. I think everyone has some kind of similar story. Some of them we know about, like this event, but others we have no idea about because nothing happened. I was at a crosswalk with my nephew in Houston, somewhere around Minute Maid. I was in a hurry and we didn't have a walk sign, but I was like, forget, and motioned him while saying, go, go, go. A big-ass blue truck turned right as was now on the street. I was making my tiny nephew cross, and with a fucking green light, it was like a quick turn then go situation for the truck. I screamed a sound I've never heard myself or any other human make before. It was like as deep as my voice could go, while also being as high-pitched as my voice can go. No! The truck somehow saw him and stopped. I would have killed myself if the truck hadn't stopped. I get a low-key PTSD from it at crosswalks. I will never be so impatient again. Driving home with my wife after a party was like 2:30 a.m. We were coming up to a light after getting off the freeway. The lights were red, so I was coasting to a stop. The light turned green and I just continued to coast instead of accelerating. Right before we get to the intersection, another car flies through the red light doing easily 50 plus mph. Had I accelerated through the light like normal, we would probably have been T-boned. In college, I was with someone buying weed. Once we walked out of the house, a mail truck drove by very slowly, staring at the house. My buddy and I just looked at each other, ran to our cars, and sped off. Once we got to the end of the street, I looked on the mirror. The house was being raided. Last time I smoked. In the 90s, I was 32 and in a relationship with L. It went really well for about a year, but I noticed a couple of things that were off. He was going to pick up ice for a family party, and 2 of the kids, 8 years old, wanted to go too. He said it wouldn't look right being alone with 2 kids, which was a big what the moment for me. Then one of his younger sisters and her husband visited, and I noticed her husband never left her side like super glue. And then the topper, he was incredibly drunk once and said to me, "I'm not a bad person, but I did a bad thing." He quickly started making plans to get married, but I was on high alert and stepping back. Then Elle's father and stepmother called me to find out if I would attend a family wedding, and I had an opening to inquire, so I did. Stepmother: "We just assumed Elle has had therapy because he's never been with someone like you before." As it turns out, at age 19, he AR'd his 15 and 12-year-old sisters. Records were sealed because of their ages. I moved out the same day, gone before he was home from work. What was especially troubling to me was he was a popular, well-regarded person. You'd have never suspected the guy. Edit. Missed a crucial fact. He made his living as an antique toy seller, trade shows, the whole thing. The absolute arrogance of that deliberate choice is beyond belief. Camping with my friend and his dad in high school, after target shooting across the ravine, I thought my rifle was empty. I had it pointed at the ground, and just standing there talking, I pulled the trigger. Turns out there was a round in the chamber. The hole in the ground was about 2 centimeters from my big toe. Needless to say, I was not allowed to touch a gun the rest of that trip. I've dodged other bullets, but I felt this was the most literal example. I work in industrial service. There was a time when I walked about 2/3 to my equipment from the truck to get the hour meter reading for the paperwork, and realized that I forgot my hard hat. In the time it took me to get it, a barrel of bronze bars had fallen from a mezzanine right into the walking path. Had I not gone back, I would have likely been killed from it falling on me. So indirectly, my hard hat saved my life. There was also a time when I had hopped a set of train tracks on my rollerblades, with the gates down and a train running full speed, passed before my rollerblades had returned to the ground. When I was a child, my mother worked till 2 a.m., and her best friend's 20-something-year-old daughter was my babysitter. She had a toddler and a daughter who was my age, so we were naturally best friends. We lived exactly 1 block from each other. I generally stayed at their apartment overnight, and early in the AM my mom would pick me up and get me ready for school. One afternoon I came down with a fever at school. My mom had to come pick me up early and take me to the pediatrician. I had a double ear infection. Fever wouldn't come down, so she didn't go to work. The next morning, my mom and I woke up to sirens all over the neighborhood. Then there were helicopters. We were outside and saw that down the street at the building where my best friend and babysitter lived was surrounded by police and EMS. My mom asked NYPD what happened and told them that her friend's daughter lived there. The officer asked what apartment, and when my mom told her, he lost all the color in his face. He then asked my mom if she had any contact info for the residents in the home. My mom then started screaming for the officer to tell her what's going on. He then told us that a woman and 2 kids were murdered by someone. Another person was stabbed but survived. My babysitter and her kids were stabbed to death by my babysitter's ex-boyfriend, and I was supposed to be there that night. Dated an attorney who claimed that she was still a virgin. After a few dates, she wanted to meet some of my friends. No big deal for me, so I introduced them at a social gathering. Apparently, she was accusing me of hooking up with one of my friends that she just met at the party, just because we were talking and catching up. I didn't hear this as I was on the other side of the house, but as her and I were about to leave, my friend said in Spanish she had to tell me something. Spanish because my date didn't know Spanish. Told her to text me because my date and I were going back to my place, so obviously I'm thinking with my bottom half here. We got back to my place. Things started heating up, as things do. Then she drops the virgin bomb on me. We talk about it to discuss comfort levels, and then I finally get a text message from my friend at the same time telling me everything my date was saying at her house. Obviously rubbed me the wrong way and lost all interest in her, but had to figure out a way to get her out of my place without triggering a reaction. My immediate thought was, she's an attorney and would know how to game the system if she wants to claim any type of assault. I told her I felt like I was having some stomach issues and coming up and needed to get medicine at a 24-hour pharmacy next door, and she should come with. My apartment has cameras on every floor, and I knew where they were placed. Conveniently knew they also recorded audio because had to obtain footage months ago for a break-in for stolen packages. Every camera we walked past, I made sure to say loud and clear that I wasn't feeling good and it was smart for us to not go further right now, intimate-wise. I made sure she stated outright that if we did decide to, that she consented. I even threw in the, "I've had a few drinks. I'm just concerned that you might take advantage of that because you really like me, and I want this to be a clear mind consent decision from the two of us." We go to the pharmacy. I buy some Tums and start recording on my phone in my pocket. I bring up the whole hooking up accusation, and she loses her mind. Like, I legit thought she was going to try to stab me or something. Then she outright says that she's willing to forget the hooking up thing if I hook up with her. I don't know if she was bipolar or what, but red flags are screaming at me at this point. I tell her she should go. I call her an Uber, make sure she gets inside, and then go back home. I send her a text in the morning that, based on the previous night's events, I have no interest in seeing her further. Then I block her everywhere. I requested the footage from my landlord and save it on my computer as a backup. A month later, I get a letter that she's filing an SA suit against me. I contact the lawyer through my legal insurance benefit. Turns out he knows her and had a defendant for the same exact charge like a year ago. I provide him all the evidence I have, including the recording on my phone. Turns out it's not admissible anyways because of a two-party consent law or something. We go to court, I countersue, I end up winning. I'm so happy my friend texted me when she did. Who knows what could have happened. Pulled over on the side of the highway when my car failed me, old 325 CI. It was nighttime and drizzly. Told my girlfriend at the time to get out of the car. She was confused and upset about it. Like literally 2 minutes after she gets out, a drunk driver plows into the back of my car. No airbags deployed, and we wouldn't have had our seatbelts on. The firemen who came were so surprised that we had gotten out and stood behind the barrier. Someone was watching over us that night. I was with a woman in my early 20s that I'd had a crush on for most of high school. At the time, I was tending bar and a raging alcoholic, but she stayed nonetheless. We ended up getting pregnant, and I just could not get my shit together. We lost it to a miscarriage, and she ghosted me a few weeks later. We had known each other for a decade, and been on and off for 5 of those years, so the ghosting was like being stabbed in the heart. In the span of a few weeks, I'd lost my first child, and the only woman I had ever loved. She did reach out a few weeks later and apologize for ghosting me, and we parted somewhat amicably. It took me a few years to become and bounce back from that, but eventually I went to community college, moved across the country to transfer to a very prestigious college, found my niche in anthropology, and met my soulmate, who I'm celebrating 6 months of marriage with today. My ex met a good man she's super compatible with. She's always wanted to be a mom, but had miscarried several times. She now has 2 kids with him, and loves being a mom, and I'm happily married and about to get my bachelor's next month. So I guess we both dodged a bullet. When I was applying for student visa for the US in 2011, since Iran doesn't have a US embassy, I was doing my consulate interview in Dubai. I was already rejected twice, and it was my 3rd attempt in Dubai. Since getting an appointment is hard, and I wanted to try a different embassy, I also booked an appointment in Kabul embassy. Based on online searches, people were recommending Intercontinental Hotel in Kabul. Luckily, my visa was approved the 3rd time in Dubai. Otherwise, I would have been in Kabul Intercontinental at the same time that the terrorist attack happened. Driving out, the Coquihalla was going up a large hill in the right lane of a double-lane highway, and just as I get to crest of the hill, a car going the wrong way in the left lane passed me. It happened so quick that it didn't even register that I nearly died in my head on collision at 120 kph until after they had passed me. How they got on the wrong side, I don't know. Maybe an emergency vehicle turnaround? There was a big ditch and concrete barriers dividing oncoming traffic. There was also a convoy of semis just a few hundred meters behind me, taking up both lanes. So I wonder how they dealt with that. wouldn't have been much braking distance, that's for sure.